Welcome back, America. Our next guest is a constitutional and election law expert as well, Hans von Spakovsky. Hans, how are you, my friend?
Mark, I'm doing great.
Hans is Senior Legal Fellow of the Heritage Foundation. Before that, he was a commissioner for the Federal Election Commission. He was counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the National Department of Justice in charge of enforcing voting rights laws. Who better to have? Hans, hundreds of lawsuits were brought prior to this election, the vast majority of which were by the Democrat Party or Democrat Party surrogates.
Right.
Hundreds of them. Number one, have you ever seen anything like this before? And number two, what was the purpose of these lawsuits?
No, it was unprecedented. I've never seen so many lawsuits filed before Election Day, and all the lawsuits had a common theme. They all tried to get the security protocols that are in place for absentee or mail-in ballots eliminated. You know, they wanted to get rid of, for example, witness signature requirements on absentee ballots. They wanted to get rid of signature comparison for absentee ballots when election officials compare the signature on the ballot with the signature on file for the voter. They tried to implement vote harvesting in every state. So states that banned vote harvesting, in other words, strangers and being able to come to your front door to pick up ballots, they wanted it overridden. In Alabama, which has a voter ID law that applies to absentee ballots, they tried to get the courts to basically say they couldn't apply that ID law to absentee ballots either. So everything they did was intended to get rid of any of the protections and measures put in place by states to try to prevent fraud in the use of absentee ballots.
And they succeeded in many respects in states like Pennsylvania and other states, didn't they?
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, the order by the Pennsylvania court was really bizarre in many aspects, telling the election officials there that they couldn't reject a ballot if the signature didn't match. They couldn't reject a ballot even if there's no postmark on the envelope to indicate it's been voted by Election Day, and then extending the deadline past the deadline set by the state legislature.
Well, let's again take Pennsylvania as an example, although it's not the only example. If you're not required to have a postmark or a signature that matches another signature, in fact, you could have voted after Election Day, couldn't you?
You sure could, and it would be very easy if you can pick up absentee ballots that have not been voted by voters, which happens all the time, to submit fraudulent ballots.
Yeah, because no signature is required. So what are they going to check it against? Now, under those circumstances, it's interesting. In-person voting has an absolute deadline. You better be at your precinct in Pennsylvania by 8 p.m. Eastern time in the line, or you don't get the vote. So all of these were Trump voters. On the other hand, if you're sitting at home, maybe you're watching the election results, you don't like what's happening in Pennsylvania, the early vote, you can vote your mail-in vote. You don't have to have a postal date on there. In fact, you don't want one. You don't have to sign it. You drop it off, and the vote counts, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that is very problematic. Look, there's no reason to extend the deadline for absentee ballots past Election Day. It's not as if absentee ballots, you can only get them a couple of days before Election Day. In fact, the vast majority of them can be requested and obtained weeks, if not more than a month, 2 months before Election Day. So you have plenty of time to get it back in the hands of election officials by the end of Election Day.